I've built countless apps with Claude Code, iOS apps, Chrome extensions, full client management systems. I've built apps that businesses have paid me anywhere from $500 to $15,000 to build out for them. I've automated my entire lead gen process. I created a system that creates beautiful presentations for me in one prompt. I even built my own personal AI assistant that runs 24/7, all with Claude Code. And I have zero idea how to code. I've spent 1,258 hours in Claude Code in the past 7 months, building things that have made my life easier and building things that people have paid me real money for. I'm going to compress all 1,258 hours into this one course, and I will share everything that I've learned, how to actually set up Claude Code correctly to get better results than most people, the workflows, the automations, the prompts, everything. After this video, you'll know everything you need to build apps people will pay you for with zero coding experience. First things first, why Claude Code? Well, Claude Code is quite honestly the best software application, AI agent, whatever you want to call it, I've ever used. And the reason simply being is because anybody can now create anything, literally. You are limited by only your imagination and what you can put your mind to. But the fact that in 2026, people with zero developer experience, including myself, can create automations, apps, workflows to make my life easier, create apps that people will actually pay me money for is pretty insane. So the technical barrier has been completely removed, and you can build a very lucrative business off of Claude Code alone. And I think this is going to be one of the most valuable, if not the most valuable skill, knowing how to use these agentic coding models going forward. Now, install. And I'm just going to cover this really quickly. This has been covered to death in other tutorials, and the real value out of this course are my specific automations and workflows you can't find anywhere else. But real quick, if you haven't installed Claude before, first things first is you're going to need a paid Claude subscription. So unfortunately, Claude Code is not available on the free plan. So you need either the Pro or the Max plan. Personally, I have the $200 a month Max plan because, again, I'm in here several hours every day, and I hardly ever hit my limits. But it's going to depend on your budget, your use case. Pro is totally fine for getting started, and you can always upgrade later on. So once you have a paid Claude subscription, the first thing you're going to need to install is Node.js. And this is going to allow you to basically install Claude on your computer. So just search for Node.js. We're just going to click Get Node.js right here. So I'm just going to copy this command to my clipboard and open up my terminal. And then I'm just going to throw this in there. Now I already have this installed, so it might act a little bit different than yours if you don't have it installed. And you can see it's very, very simple, very quick. Now, once you have Node.js installed, then you're just going to search for Claude Code installation. I'll put the links down in the description below for these as well. And super easy. You're just going to go down here. You're going to copy this command to install Claude Code. Same exact thing. We're going to open up our terminal, and we are going to paste that in and run that. And it's going to install Claude Code. Again, I already have this installed on my system, so it's going to behave a little bit differently than yours would. Okay, now easy as that, Claude Code is successfully installed on our system. So now if you literally just type in Claude, it'll open up Claude Code. It's asking me if I trust this folder. And if it's your first time using Claude Code, it'll ask you to connect to your Claude subscription. So we're not actually going to use Claude Code in our stock computer terminal. We are going to use an application called Visual Studio Code. And it's the same thing. It's a terminal that we're going to use Claude in, but Visual Studio Code also allows us to manage projects much easier and manage our folders. So I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code right now. Okay, here we are in Visual Studio Code, and this is pretty much what everybody uses Claude Code in, and it's completely free to download. So once we open it up, we're going to start a new project. I'm going to click Open right here, and I'm going to create a brand new project for this, and we're going to create an Automotive Newsletter subscription site. So I'll create that, and then I'll open up that folder, and now we are actually working in our project, and we can start building this thing. So there are a couple of ways to access Claude Code inside of Visual Studio Code. The easiest and most beginner-friendly way is if we go to the extensions over here on the left, we search the marketplace for Claude Code for VS Code. We can find it right here, and we simply click Install. Now, once you have this extension installed, then you can just click this icon right here to access Claude Code. And now this pretty much looks like any other LLM AI agent interface that you've used. We can start talking to Claude, and we can actually start building things right with this interface. So pretty easy to use, but personally for me, I prefer using Claude Code in the terminal. I think it just gives you a little bit more customization, and it's a lot more of an extensive tool. And honestly, I just have better results with it. So and that being said, it's still very, very easy to use. I'm non-technical whatsoever. So we're going to open up the terminal. I'm going to go to the top bar here and just click New Terminal. And then once we're inside the terminal, all we literally have to do is type in Claude, and it'll open up Claude Code, and we can start building from there. Step number 3, setup and CLAUDE.md file. So this is the most important part of your entire project, and the results that you get are going to be highly dependent on how well you set this up at the beginning, and most people set this up completely wrong. So to explain the CLAUDE.md file, this is a markdown file that lives at the root of your project. And what this is, it's kind of like the brain of your project. Claude Code is both very intelligent and kind of stupid at the same time. These LLMs thrive off context. They need context. So if you're not providing constant context of what you want, it's very easy for Claude Code to go off the rails, to lose track, to completely forget what you're working on. So that's what this Claude.md file serves as. It's full of context, direction, clarity, focus, and basically the objectives of the project. Now, why this is so important is because Claude constantly references this file with every single prompt. Every single time you put in a prompt, it reads the Claude.md file to remind itself of what it's working on. So that's why this is so important to set this up correctly, because this can steer Claude into different directions. Now, just to show you how much this affects Claude and its outputs, let me show you some projects with some very specific Claude.md files that I've created. So this first one here is called the Compass, and it's basically a lead gen system for my private school community. But you can see here, if I just put hi, we'll wait for Claude to respond here. Okay, so you can see here, I got a weird response from Claude that you probably wouldn't get. It says, I see you have a config file, but it looks like it hasn't been fully set up yet. The name is just user and some details are missing. Welcome to the Compass. Before we get rolling, I need to learn a bit about you so I can personalize your experience. What's your name? And I'll put in Zane. Wait for it to reply. Great to meet you, Zane. What's your monthly revenue goal? So you can see here that this is unlike any other Claude Code agent that you would interact with. It's asking me very specific questions. It's saying, welcome to the Compass. And this is all because of that Claude.md file. So I've designed this system in a way that directs my private school community users through a very specific formulaic process to help them, get clients, build apps to make them money. And it all is dependent on this Claude.md file. So just to show you what this looks like, it says system identity, you are the Compass, a business building super agent for Basecamp members. You help build profitable AI software businesses by finding, boring B2B problems. User configuration check, critical first step before doing anything else. Check if user config JSON exists in the root directory. So we can see here that at the beginning, it did read that user config file and saw that there was no safe profile here, and that's why it took me back to the onboarding setup. So this is a perfect example of how much that Claude.md file affects your output and the direction and the responses that Claude gives you. Let me show you one more example of a very specific workflow that I've created. And one of my most popular workflows, a ton of people have started this on GitHub. So if I just say hi here, we will wait for Claude to respond. It says, hi, how can I help you today? Ready to work on a presentation or anything else you need. So this instance of Claude and this Claude.md file is specifically designed to create me beautiful presentations with one prompt that I can use for YouTube videos. So if I simply say, create me a presentation with the AI software business script in the style of, and I will just say Apple minimal, it will know exactly what to do with that one single prompt. So while it's creating this, basically what I've done here is I've turned Claude Code into the ultimate presentation designing system, all based off that Claude.md file. So in the project, I have all of these different style references that it can use. I just take a YouTube script, I load it up into Claude, I reference a specific style. I say, hey, create me this script in this style with one prompt, and it does it for me. Again, so you can get an idea, let me show you what this CLAUDE.md file looks like. So you are a professional presentation designer creating beautiful Apple-inspired HTML presentations for YouTube videos. You work as a design partner. We have core design philosophy. We have color psychology. We have examples. We even have charts and what the chart should look like. We have headline formulas and subheadlines and copywriting and everything. And all this context is preloaded into Claude. So all I ever have to do in here is load up one prompt and I have a finished presentation in like 2 minutes. Okay, so it just finished creating that presentation. Now let's take a look. I'll tell it to open it up. And here we go. A full 18-slide presentation with beautiful animations, beautiful design, look like something Apple design. And again, this took me one prompt, and this is all dependent on that CLAUDE.md file and setting that up correctly. So now that you see the power, the possibility, the importance of this CLAUDE.md file, let's go create our own. So here we are in our fresh automotive newsletter project with 0 files and 0 CLAUDE.md file. So how do we make sure we start this off right and provide a really good in-depth CLAUDE.md file to get the best results possible? Well, there are a couple of ways I like to do this. But first, you have one single job with AI, and that's to provide as much direction and context as you possibly can. You see, these models thrive off of context and specificity. And it's the difference between somebody saying, hey, build me a beautiful application, and not really being happy with the results they get, versus somebody saying, hey, build me a clean, minimal, modern UI with rounded corners, with soft shadows, with warm gradients, with bouncy, smooth, playful animations, right? The more context and direction and specificity that you provide to AI, well, the better results you're going to get. Now, there are a couple of ways I like to provide this context that makes it super easy. So the first way, if I'm building an application for a client, I do this on Google Meet. And the reason being is because I can record a call, I can take notes with Gemini, and I can start a transcript. So I'll do an onboarding call with a client, and I'll get as much context as I possibly can from them. What's your current problem? Why is your current software not solving it? Where are the bottlenecks? If you had the perfect solution, what would that look like? What outcome should the software get? Do you have any preference when it comes to colors and design and UI? And by the end of this call, I have this massive transcript full of context, full of gold that I can just throw into Claude Code. I say create a CLAUDE.md file based on what the client wants, and it creates me a super in-depth CLAUDE.md file. And from there, the rest is easy because it knows exactly what to build. Now, what do you do if you don't have a client? Well, super simple. You pretend you're your own client and you're asking yourself these questions. So you come into Claude Code, I open my voice dictation app, and I literally just brain dump everything that I'm looking for. Then at the end, I say, let's create this into an extensive of a CLAUDE.md file as we possibly can. Ask me any questions you need to fill the gaps. See, your job is to provide context of what you're looking for, provide direction, and have Claude Code ask you the questions it needs to fill in the gaps. Because you don't always know the specific context to provide to AI, but AI knows what it needs to get from you to get the best possible result. And the beauty is, because you're telling Claude to ask you the questions to get the context it needs, you're able to get a lot closer to what you picture in your head. And this is just a good habit. Whenever you're prompting, whenever you're working on a new feature, tell Claude to ask you questions it needs to gain more clarity to figure out exactly what you're looking for. So let me open up my voice dictation app and prompt it right now. I want to create a automotive newsletter subscription where I can post articles, where people can subscribe, that is very similar to Substack. It will allow me to publish articles of car reviews, ask me any questions you need so we can create an as extensive as possible CLAUDE.md file, and so you can get as much context as you possibly need to get as close to my vision as we can. So again, what I'm doing here is I'm telling Claude what I want, and it's going to ask me, you can see all these questions already, it's going to pull the context out of me so we can get better results and actually build the context together. So this is just a super good practice in general. Always tell Claude to ask you questions to get it the context it needs if you feel like it might have trouble seeing exactly what you're seeing. So real quick, I'm just going to open up my voice dictation app and just speed run through these questions. All right, just ran through those questions, and I even provided a little bit more context of kind of the feeling that I'm going for, the animations, very playful, very minimal experience. But I just realized Claude even told me right here, take your time answering. The more detail you give, the better the CLAUDE.md file and the final product will be. So again, it really all is dependent on that context, and as much as you possibly can give, the better. Okay, that CLAUDE.md file has been created, so let's take a look at what Claude made. So for the Love of Cars project guide, for the Love of Cars is a premium automotive newsletter and publishing platform. This is not another cluttered automotive site like Car and Driver. We have our tech stack. We have our design system and design philosophy, dark mode, typography, shadows and depth, animations and motions. So you can see we have a very extensive, detailed CLAUDE.md file here that Claude created based on what we're looking for. Now we can actually start building this thing because Claude has that context. Now, real quick, if you ever want to change the CLAUDE.md file and have Claude do something else, like let's say every time we open an article, we want the images to bounce in. Well, all you would have to say is every time we open a new article, have the images bounce in. Make sure to add to CLAUDE.md. That's literally all you have to say. If there's ever a change you want to make to that file, just simply tell Claude to make that change. But now at this point, it's asking me, do you want me to start building out the project? And honestly, at this point, we can feel pretty useless because now Claude knows what to do, and all we have to do is give it permission. And once the final application is built out, and once we can see what it built, then we start to offer feedback to it and get it closer to what we're looking for. And so from here on out, we are just going to have Claude run with this, read this file, build out our application, and see what result we get. Now we can see Claude is actually working here. It's creating basically a to-do list of everything that it needs to do, and it's just going to track that to-do list and mark things off as it completes them. Again, AI thrives off context, and here we see Claude creating its own context of what it needs to get done so it doesn't lose track. Okay, so Claude is done with our application. It is live on localhost, so let's take a look. Nice, simple little animation there. Yep, real photos of cars. Okay, yeah, I mean, pretty simple. We're going to definitely improve upon this, but it's along the lines of what we're looking for in an automotive news site. Articles. Let me try to see if I can filter reviews. Yep. First drive. Opinion. Oh, looks like none of these are working. Interesting. Okay. That looks like it broke. So let me refresh. Yeah. So just so you know, this is basically just a design. This is just a front end of our website, meaning it's the UI, it's the animations. We still need to set up the backend, which is what actually makes the application work. So the database, authentication to sign in, storage for all of the photos, etc. I'm going to show you how to set that up in just a bit. Yeah, I mean, not bad. Let me try to subscribe. Okay. Cool. So again, the backend is not set up, so we don't actually have payment set up, which we're going to be setting in. We're going to be setting up in just a moment here. Let me try to do dark mode. Yeah, I mean, not bad, not bad. For just, you know, we built the CLAUDE.md file, and then we didn't have to do too much from there, and we have a completed application. So this is not too many prompts away from having a live application that actually works and that we can actually make money from. So we set up our project, we created a CLAUDE.md file, which brings us to step 4, the real workflow. How do we actually now work with Claude to get the best possible results? Now, the first thing that we talked about that are super important and basically what you need to provide AI are direction, specific direction of what you want and what you're looking for, and providing as much context as you possibly can for Claude to work with. Now, there is a third very important component that you need to provide Claude here, or really any AI model, and that is feedback, providing as much feedback as possible on the project, on the design, on what Claude built for you, so Claude knows to improve. Because Claude can't actually see its own design. It can see the code and it has a guess of what the design looks like, but it can't actually see what it built. And so we need to be the eyes for Claude, and we need to provide that feedback. So let me just show you real quick what this looks like. So couple of things. Is this supposed to be in light mode? Let me check. Okay, yeah, I guess that flips. So one thing right here that I see is I don't like how this arrow looks. It's kind of underneath here. It looks a bit awkward. So an example of feedback would basically just be screenshotting this here. And I'm going to now take that screenshot. I'm going to bring it over to Claude, and I'm going to provide it some feedback and work with it. So I'm going to say, overall, the design looks all right, but there's kind of this funky button on the home page, and I don't like how the arrow is on the second line. The view all articles and the arrow should all be on one single line. So let's make that happen. Okay, Claude said that should fix it. View all articles will now stay on a single line. The page should hot reload automatically. So let's go look. Interesting. Looks like it's still on two separate lines. And honestly, sometimes you do have to go back and forth a couple of times with Claude if you weren't specific enough. So maybe I wasn't specific enough for whatever reason, but it looks like that wasn't quite fixed. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a screenshot of this entire page. Oops. Okay, my screen recording software is not letting me do that. Let me try again. Screenshot this entire page so it can see exactly what I'm talking about. I will paste that screenshot in there. And screenshots are your best friend when giving Claude feedback. And I will just say that is still not fixed. The view all articles button and the arrow are still on two separate lines. So something pretty simple like that, I'll try to knock out with one prompt, and I'll try to just kind of like, I wasn't super in depth. I was like, okay, hopefully Claude knows what I'm talking about. This is a pretty simple fix. But if you're seeing that it's still not fixing the issue, well, you might have to provide even more context and simply get a lot more specific with what you're talking about. Okay, so it looks like the issue was in the button component, and it should have fixed it globally for all buttons. Okay, now that was fixed. Took a couple of prompts, not a big deal, but this is what that workflow looks like. So providing as much context in the feedback that you're now giving as possible. So now let's say I want an even bigger change than a simple button style. So what I'm going to do is, let's say I want to change this progress bar down here for the article. What I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to screenshot this page, put in my screenshot, and I would just say, I like the progress bar and how it progresses as we scroll down the page, but I don't like the style of it. Instead of the top bar that progresses, let's do a sidebar of dots that highlight the different sections. I can click the dots to move to different sections of the article. And as I scroll through the page, the dot representing the next section gets filled, and the remaining sections that I'm not on are simply a border of a circle. Kind of thinking of that on the spot, so hopefully Claude knows what I'm talking about. But again, we can use our little trick that we use with the CLAUDE.md file to give Claude all of the context that it needs. So now I will say, just like our CLAUDE.md file, if it's a more complex thing like this, I can say, ask me any clarifying questions you need to get clarity on what I'm asking you to do. So we can see that Claude does in fact have a couple of questions for me, and it asks me these questions in this really nice UI where I can use my arrow keys and enter to select. So the first question, what should each dot represent? Should they map to the article's H2 headings? Yep, let's do the article's H2 headings. Which side of the page should the dot nav appear on? We'll do right side. Should the dots show a tooltip label on hover? Sure, why not? Let's try it out. Claude changed that sidebar, so let's go see if he understood what we wanted. Okay, let me try scrolling. Oh, nice. Then I had these little dots pop up right here. Pretty cool. Okay, and it disappears when we scroll to the comment section. Yeah, that is pretty cool. And we even have the labels here of the different dots and different sections. The one thing I would like is to make these clickable. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that real quick. Okay, interesting. Claude was telling me that they're already clickable, which I don't think they're working for me. Let me go try again. Yeah, they are not currently working for me. Let's see. It says it's fully wired. Let me try hard refreshing the page and clicking them again. Yeah. So this is when we start to get into, just a little bit of debugging. and just going back and forth. Claude will make a change, Claude will make a fix, Claude will implement something, you go test it, and you offer that feedback. Nice. Okay, my cursor is prompting me to click them. I still can't click them, but that's progress. So that is specific context that you would want to tell Claude because something did change, but they're still not clickable. So we'll go back one more time. I'm betting Claude can nail it on this next try. Okay, we made progress. Now my cursor is changing to the hand. Claude changed something else, so let's go ahead and try to click those buttons now. Nice. Okay, they are clickable and they are mapped to the sections. So that has been successfully fixed. And this is essentially what the workflow looks like with Claude, is they try to nail it first try, of course, but there's going to be a couple things here and there that are either broken and need to be fixed, or you simply want changed. Part number 5, skills. Now, skills are one of my favorite parts about Claude Code. They make things so much easier and they're incredibly powerful. So in the simplest amount of words, skills are a set of specific instructions that Claude can follow on command, a saved step-by-step process. So skills are very similar to that CLAUDE.md file where you have a skill.md file. And this is the same exact thing. It's a markdown file that has specific instructions of a process for Claude to follow. So for example, I have skills to check security of my applications. Anytime I want to check if an application is secure, I say use the security skill. Anytime I want to optimize my application for mobile, I say use the mobile skill. And Claude can then go reference this markdown file, see everything it needs to do to make our application secure, to optimize it for mobile, etc. And it can basically run this whole process with one single prompt. So to show you what this looks like, we are going to install a skill called the Frontend Design Skill. And basically what this does is it turns Claude Code into a professional designer where it's much better at web design. So I'm going to just go ahead and copy this command and run this in our terminal. Okay, so I already had that skill installed, but if I didn't have installed, basically what I would do is I would then go run this second command as well to finalize installing that skill. And I'll put these both in the description down below as well. Now, at any time, you can also run /command skills, and you can see the list of available skills to you. So right now, I have the front-end design skill. Now, we can also create new skills too. So let's say if I ever wanted to create a skill to optimize for mobile, I can say create a skill that optimizes for mobile, and Claude will create that skill, and then we'll have that as our available skills. Now, honestly, sometimes I even go into the Claude web application or the desktop application because the Claude desktop app comes preloaded with a skill that creates skills. So you can see here I said, use the skill creation skill to create me a skill that optimizes my websites for mobile. It then went through and it built me this skill that I can download and import into Claude Code. You can see, again, this is simply just a markdown file. So this is audit and optimize any website or web application for mobile devices. And it's just a set of instructions very similar to our Claude.md file. And so you can see that Claude really runs off of these markdown files. So we have our skill here and we have references here. And this is basically just a checklist. So here's a mobile audit checklist to optimize this website for mobile, or this application for mobile, and it will just go through and make sure it completes everything on the checklist. So it's really nice because I don't have to prompt for this every single time. All I have to say is, hey, call that skill, and it will go through all of this automatically. So I'm going to simply try something, and I'm just going to say, use the front-end design skill to redesign our entire application. And I'm just going to run that skill and leave it at that and see what happens. So we can see now that Claude is loading that skill and it's reading all of those instructions right now in that markdown file. So Claude has finished redesigning our entire application using that front-end design skill. But honestly, this was a bit of an experiment because I told Claude to use the skill, but I didn't specify which direction to go in or what type of design I was looking for. So I just wanted to show you the power that skills can have on your output. So we're going to take a look at this, and then I'm going to show you how you can simply copy designs of other websites that you like and tell Claude to basically just implement that design to your own website. So let's first go and take a look at our new application redesign. Okay, already it looks a little bit different. We got this like blurry frosted glass header bar up here. Not too bad. And it kind of just redesigned things with gold accents, which I'm guessing was the prompting of that skill. For the most part, it looks pretty similar. Let me try refreshing. Yeah, for the most part, it looks pretty similar. Just kind of change the font, change the accent of the colors. So yeah, again, even though not much change, I think I prefer this. I like the new fonts. I like the colors. Now, let me show you the system I came up with that I have not seen anywhere else to get a beautiful, amazing, professional design from Claude every single time. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Framer Marketplace. And we're going to click on templates. And Framer basically has hundreds, if not thousands of templates here of beautiful, amazing, professional designs that we can basically just copy. So we're going to be a little bit sneaky here, but we're just going to find a design that we like. So let's see, I'll click on this one. I'm going to click preview. And we can see we have all these animations. Oh, that looks nice. That looks quite nice. So I'm going to do a couple of things to have Claude mimic this design. So it's not going to get absolutely perfect and be a complete one-of-one replica, but it'll get pretty dang close. So there's a couple of things we're going to do. So I'm going to go back to Claude, and we're not going to redesign our website right away. So basically what I like to do is I like to have Claude create a bunch of HTML mockups, and I go to Framer, I find a bunch of designs I like, I redesign my website and every single design that I like in HTML mockups. And then once I find one I like, then I tell Claude to implement that design on our live application. So let me show you what I mean. So I'll say, let's use the Frontend Design Skill to create a mockup. Let's see, an HTML mockup of our website in the style of this site. Okay, now I'll go and I'll grab that URL from Framer. So again, I'm just going to try to give as much context as I can. So I'll grab the URL, then I'll go back to Framer, I'll right click and click inspect, and I'm going to press Shift Command P, and I'm going to do styles, and I'm going to click copy styles. So I'm going to copy the styles, then paste those styles in, and then I will go back to the website, and I will hold Shift Command P again, and I will type in screenshot. And I will capture full size screenshot. And basically what this is going to do is screenshot this entire website. I'm going to save this to my downloads. Now, this might be overkill providing the domain, the styles, and a screenshot. But again, the more context we can give Claude, the better. Now, while we're waiting, we can whip up a couple of these. So I can open up another instance of Claude, and I'm going to put in the same exact prompt with a different design, and we're just going to create a bunch of these HTML mockups. This is kind of more traditional. Oh, I kind of like this one. That's kind of nice. I don't know if it'll match cars, but let's try it. So I'm going to whip up a few more. I'll probably just fast forward through this part because it's going to get a little bit repetitive, but I'll just open up another instance of Claude. I'm going to paste that command, and then I'll just plug in the domain, styles, and then screenshot. Okay, every single of the 4 agents finished. So we have 4 different mockups to look through. I am seeing these for the first time. So let's go ahead and look at the first design. Ooh, not bad. Pretty good. I like that. Yeah, not bad. I think it got relatively close. Again, this is all just demo data. But, I mean, again, it's not going to copy it exactly, but let me see if I can find that template again. I don't know where it is, but I do think that oh, here it is. Yeah, somewhat close. I mean, it's not going to get like all the animations and the custom cursor, but it copied kind of the overall feel and the design of the website. So not terrible. So let's look at the second one. This one's all right. Don't love this one. Yeah, don't really care for this one. Looks pretty funky. Let's look for the third one. A lot more simple. Kind of a more, I don't like how it's like one column here. Is that just because my browser size? No. Yeah, this one's okay. And then let's see. Oh, this one's not bad. Yeah, actually, this one's actually not bad. I just don't know why I didn't pull in any of the photos. So I went back to Claude and told it to throw in the photos from our website into this mockup, and it looks pretty good. We got the Porsche behind there for the hero image. And then, yeah, I like this one and probably the first one the best. These are probably two the best ones. The middle two were okay. This one, fine. A little too simple for my taste. And then this one was just terrible. So again, this is a really good way to get like a start and a base and do most of the work for you, but you will most likely have to, again, refine it, give Claude feedback, and get it exactly the way that you want. So if I wanted to implement this design on my live website, we're just going to go back to Claude and tell it to use this mockup for our design language. So I'm going to go back to my main session, and I'm just going to say, okay, let's implement the let me just double check what the file name was. Mockup, I believe it was Aventus. Let me just double check. Aventus. Yes. Okay. Let's implement the, and I can even just drag this over here too into the chat box. Design into our live website. Copy it exactly and redesign every single page using this design language. Okay, our site has been redesigned with that mockup, so let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, and sometimes it can load a little funky. So if you hard refresh, Command Shift R, let's see if that fixes it. Yeah, okay. That usually does a job. So yeah, this is our live website with that new design. Looks pretty good. Pretty much nailed that mockup that we created. So let's go see if the other pages were done as well. So this should be done. Ooh, I do like that with the cover. I mean, you can't really see the photo, but that looks kind of nice. Cool. Let's see. Subscribe. That all looks good. Yeah, so pretty much nailed it. So let's set up the backend so we can take this from just a pretty design into a fully functional working application. So let's go over some of the most common tools that people use for backend. The most popular being GitHub. This is pretty much the industry standard. So this is where you would store all of your code. You would save it. You would back it up to GitHub. If anything happens to your computer, you're not screwed and you don't lose your project. And you can also keep track of all of your versions. So you can revert back to a previous version if something got messed up. And basically, you can think of this as a place where you're going to store all of your progress. Now, number two is Subagents, and this is essentially your database. So where all of your data lives, all of our articles, all of our photos, all of our users, authentication, everything would be stored on Subagents. And then lastly would be Vercel. So this is actually how we get our application live on the internet so people can actually visit it and use it. And these are pretty much the most common tools that people use to set up their backend, these three right here. But today, I'm going to be using something that I discovered recently that honestly is way easier, because you do kind of have to, you have to sign up for accounts for all three of these, and you have to either give API keys to Claude Code or you have to use the CLI tools. So we are just going to use an MCP instead, which brings us to part 6, MCPs. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And don't worry, I don't really know what that means either. But all you need to know is an MCP is basically like giving Claude a tool plus direct access to an external application so it can do whatever you ask it to. Now, to make this real simple, I'll give you an example. Let's say I wanted Claude Code to work with my Notion database. Now, level 1, and the worst way I can do this is all manually. I can go to Notion, I can copy all the content I want, and then I can go over to Claude in the terminal, I can paste it in there, and I can transfer data from Notion to Claude that way. Level 2 would be APIs. So I can go to my Notion account, I can get my private Notion API key, I can go paste that into Claude, and now every time I want Claude to do something in Notion, it'll call that API key, it will go basically knock on the door, and it can either read data or perform a task in my Notion database. Now, level 3 is our MCPs, and these were designed specifically by Anthropic for AI coding models. So an MCP is basically like giving Claude access all the time, and it can do pretty much whatever it wants in my Notion database. So I could tell Claude, hey, create me a full YouTube tracking, performance tracking spreadsheet in my Notion database to monitor all my analytics. Or I could say, hey, Claude, what do we have to do today? Check my Notion database and help me prioritize my tasks. And if you go to Anthropic's documents, they actually have a list of popular MCPs you can install with Claude. So they have Notion, Slack, Figma, Canva. I'm not going to try to say that, Linear, Gamma, etc. So you can go through, you can get all these MCPs, install them in the Claude. All you have to do is copy this this command, and now Claude has pretty much access to this application. So the MCP that we're going to be using today is called Insforge. And Insforge is a tool that I discovered recently. This is not a sponsored video, but basically it makes it incredibly easy to set up our backend with one prompt. So we don't have to individually go from GitHub, Supabase, Vercel, etc. We can just use the Insforge MCP. So let me show you how to do this. So once we're logged in, I'm going to go down and I'm going to select Claude Code. I'm going to copy this command, and don't share this command because it has your private API keys attached to it. I'm going to then open Terminal on my computer. Oops, I'm already in a Claude Code session right here. Let me terminate this and open up a new one. And I'm just going to run this command. Insforge MCP is now configured for Claude Code. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to start a new session of Claude because you have to restart Claude for the MCP to be available. So we're in a fresh session of Claude Code, and I'm going to run MCP just to check my existing MCP servers, and we can see that I now have Insforge connected to my Claude Code project. So MCPs are super cool. They make things easy. I've used MCPs a bunch of times. I've used MCPs to literally have Claude Code create me cold email campaigns and email a bunch of leads and book calls. So there are countless MCPs out there to do pretty much whatever you want. So now we're going to use the Insforge MCP to set up our entire backend pretty much with one prompt. Let's set up the entire backend of this application using the Insforge MCP, including the database, Google authentication, etc. Let's also include an AI LLM to that's basically a writing assistant that can help me write articles and write articles for me. And we'll also have to have some sort of payment gateway to take payment. Okay, Claude is working on setting up that backend via Insforge. One thing I forgot to mention is, let me just say, let's also use the Insforge MCP to enable email sending. I want to send an email to subscribers whenever a new article is published. It's deployed on Insforge, so let's go ahead and check it out, make sure everything works. Okay, everything pretty much looks the same, but what we care about now is, first of all, how do I actually write articles? I need an admin dashboard. I just realized that. Okay, so it should be deployed. It should be working on the back end, but I need to create myself an admin dashboard. That way I can actually use the website. So let me go back here. I just realized we still need to build out an admin dashboard. All right, we should have that admin dashboard now. So let's go ahead and open back up our site and see if we have a button. I still don't see a button to sign in. Oh, account maybe? Oh, okay, I guess it's just buried way down below. So I'm going to use Google to sign in. And cool, looks like it did take us to some sort of admin dashboard. And obviously we have nothing in the database because we have no posts. So let's go ahead and try to write a new article. So I'll click new article. All right, got my photo uploaded. Looks pretty good. Now let's try to use this AI assist writer. So let's just say, write me a review of the new Lexus GX550. And then we'll just run with that. Okay, took a second there, but it looks like it did write us a full review of the Lexus GX. Now let's try to insert this into the editor. Nice. That looks pretty good. Oh, looks like the one thing I would take out here is the AI commentary right there of it thinking. Yeah, pretty easy. Now we'll just write review of the all new 2026 Lexus GX550. Okay, and then let's go ahead and publish this. Your article is live. The world awaits. Wow, how exciting. All right, let's go back to the site and see if it's live. And just like that, we now can publish articles and have AI write the entire thing for us. Pretty cool. So let's make sure the rest of the website works. Let me go and try to subscribe. Click subscribe. You're in. Welcome to the community. All right, now this pay button should be working as well. I took my Stripe API keys, threw them into Claude, and told it to connect Stripe. So let's see if this takes me to a checkout. Nice. This does take me to a Stripe checkout. Now, I want to make sure that the subscriber came through in the admin dashboard. So let me sign in again. Okay, looks like I was already signed in. Total subscribers. Sweet. Okay, looks like I am getting subscribers. So last thing I want to test is when I publish a new article, I want to make sure that the subscribers get an email. So let me just write another article real quick. Okay, we have good news and bad news. The good news is I have the email of the brand new article of the Ford Raptor R, and I can click this and it'll take me right to the article. So pretty cool. The bad news is that Insforge's email capability is not quite live yet. So it wasn't working with Insforge. So what I did is I went and used the email sending service that I always use called Resend. It's totally free to get started. I think you get like 3,000 emails a month. I just signed up, I grabbed my API key, and I threw it in Claude Code and told it to use this for emails instead. The whole process took like 60 seconds. So not a big deal, just a minor hiccup, but we will get articles now every single time, or we will get emails now every single time a brand new article is published. So we pretty much have the first version of a working newsletter application where we can post articles, have AI write the entire articles for us. We can even get subscribers, build an audience, and we can even start actually making money and charging people through Stripe. So we pretty much have a working application at this point. Part 7, Subagents. So a subagent is a second Claude you spawn to handle a specific task independently, kind of like a Claude within a Claude. Now, Anthropic also just released the second version of subagents like a week ago that are pretty insane that I'll show you in just a sec. But first, let me show you the first version of subagents. So going back to our terminal, I'm going to type in /command agents. And this is where we can see all of our agents and create new agents. So I'll just do create new agent. We will make it a project agent, generate with Claude. And now I just basically tell Claude what I want this agent to do. So I will put, let me bring up my dictation tool. Help me optimize my entire website for mobile. Make sure it's beautiful, cohesive, and a smooth experience on a mobile phone and is enjoyable to use. So not the best prompt ever, but Claude is going to take what I want and turn it into its own extensive prompting for this agent. So we'll go ahead and press enter. And now you can see it's generating agent from our description. Okay, now what do I want this agent to be able to do? We will just put all tools. Oh, that's already marked. So we'll just go back up here to continue. And then what model do we want it to use? Sonnet's fine because it's going to be performing specialized tasks. It doesn't need to do too much reasoning. That's mostly reserved for our main agent. So to save on credits, we'll just do Sonnet. What color do we want the agent to be? Let's say purple. And then we can enable persistent memory for this agent as well. So we'll just go ahead and do that. And you can see Claude took what we wanted and turned it into its own system prompt. So mobile optimizer, use this agent when the user wants to optimize pages or components for mobile devices, improve responsive design, fix mobile layouts. System prompt. You are an elite mobile UX engineer and responsive design specialist with deep expertise. So you can see that Claude handles all the prompting for us on our behalf because we're not as good at it at prompting as Claude is. So now I have this mobile optimizer in my agents list. So what I can do now is I can escape out of this and I can say, optimize our entire website using the mobile optimizer. Oh my goodness, I don't know how to spell agent. Okay, so Claude is going to call that agent and it's going to basically get to work optimizing our entire site for mobile. So what's nice is this agent has its own context window. So our main chat is not going to get all filled up with this context from the mobile optimizer agent. It's kind of working on its own off at a separate area. And our main chat can be reserved for, the duties of the main agent. So we can see that my mobile optimizer agent is now working on our full site optimization. And that's basically it. I don't find myself using Subagents too much, to be honest with you, because ever since Skills came out, I just use Skills most of the time instead of Subagents. But Anthropic did release a really cool Subagent feature that just came out that I'm probably going to be using a lot more. So I'm actually going to just interrupt the Subagent because I don't really care about doing that right now. And we will go back. I will go back here and show you that Anthropic actually released agent teams. So now this is multiple subagents running in parallel, each with a defined role, all working at the same time. So let me show you the chart straight from Anthropic. This is subagents on the left here, right? You have your main agent and it spawns subagents and they each have their individual tasks and they work until they get the result. Well, the difference is your main agent becomes the team lead instead, and it gives your agent teams a shared task list. So they all tackle something at the same time and your main agent figures out how to delegate. Now, the really cool thing is agent teams all communicate with each other. So where regular subagents are kind of working individually on their own and they're reporting back to the main agent, well, agent teams actually can coordinate with each other, can communicate with each other, and they can say, hey, wait till you do this until I finish this for the best results. So let me show you how agent teams work. So we're just going to go back to Claude. And now I will say, spin up an agent team to get our entire application production ready, from security to user experience to UI. Make sure everything works correctly, make sure nothing's broken, and make sure the entire newsletter application and every single feature is fully functional. So I would just run that, and Claude should know what types of agents to spin up based on the result that I'm looking for. Okay, now you can see there's a lot going on. So the team lead, or my main agent, create a bunch of tasks basically to get this application production ready, and then it's spun up specific agents based on what we're looking for. So I'm actually in the public pages agent right now, and I can actually hold shift and use my arrow keys to go through the different, let me press enter, to go through the different agent windows. So let's say I want to talk to the security agent and I want to say, hey, actually look at this to make sure it's secure. Or I want to go talk to the team lead and I want to say, hey, actually tell them all to do this as well. Or I want to go talk to the admin agent and let's say, hey, let's add this to the admin dashboard. Well, you can now knock out things so much faster by just spinning up an agent team and having them all work in parallel. So a really good use case for agent teams would be, let's say you have a bug that your main agent just can't figure out and you've gone back and forth a few times. Well, you can tell it, hey, spin me up an agent team and have each agent research different reasons why this issue might be happening and have them coordinate together to figure out a solution. Well, you can tackle bugs and issues substantially faster by just whipping up an agent team. So we can see that 44 total issues were found and fixed by the 5 different agents, and that took no time at all. So agent teams are a really awesome tool if you're going to be tackling larger projects like this. The next part is simply that this is so much more than applications. Claude Code can do substantially more than just build apps for you, because it's a agent that lives on your terminal, it has access to your computer, it has access to any MCP, it has access to any API you give it. And with that CLAUDE.md file, you can have it follow a very specific set of instructions. So some other things you can do with this are automations. You can set up automations for lead gen, for filling Excel sheets, for performing, very simple manual repetitive tasks. You can use it to create workflows. So as I showed you earlier, I have a workflow or a custom Claude code called the compass. And this will basically guide you step by step to picking a niche, to finding a highly valuable offer that you could sell high ticket to that specific niche, to basically finding leads, to generating cold emails, to actually sending out the emails. I have also built so many personal apps for myself. I've built a personal app for my wife. When my wife was pregnant, I actually built her own nutrition tracking app for pregnancy that had AI built in and told her exactly what to eat. And so any personal app that you need, let's say you want to replace a subscription, you don't want to have to pay for a certain subscription, or the app simply doesn't exist. You want it very custom to you. You want it very specific. Well, you can build that. You are only limited by what you can tell Claude to do and describe. And so every time you have, audit your life and look at your workflows and find where you have bottlenecks or you have issues or there's not a good enough solution, you can just simply code your own solution using Claude Code. And lastly are processes. And by processes, what I mostly mean are skills and the ability to package very detailed, extensive processes into one single skill and to simply tell Claude Code to use that skill. I've created so many processes through skills, such as packaging my conversation and turning it into a beautiful PDF lead magnet. So quite literally, guys, the unlock comes when you get familiar with Claude Code and realize it's so much more than building apps. And your mind will just run with, oh, I can automate this, or this is a little problem that I'm having that's annoying me, or this is something that I'm doing manually that's annoying me. You can build workflows, automations, apps to solve all these problems, all within Claude Code. Number 9, building for clients. So now that you know how to use Claude Code, how do you actually make money with it? How do you get businesses and consumers to pay you real money for applications you built with Claude Code? Well, if you can solve your own problems by building automations, workflows, apps, you can do it for other people as well. So here is the criteria that I look for when it comes to solving problems and getting paid for it with Claude Code. Number 1 is manual processes. Are they having to pay somebody to be on the clock to do something manually, like enter information into sheets or manually reaching out to customers, etc., whatever it is? I have a fire inspection client, fire inspection business that paid me $15,000 to build an app for them because they were having to fill out these forms after every single inspection, and it took them 4 hours per inspection. And I built an app that was very simple, very easy to build, that actually completes the form for them automatically after they complete the inspection. So saving them a massive amount of time and saving them a ton of money in the process. So that's why they're willing to pay me so much to build this app for them. Number 2 is repetitive processes. So something the business has to do every day or every week. Something, again, like filling out forms after every visit, completing estimates, hiring and training employees. Things that the business is doing repeatedly that can be automated to save them time and save them money. I have another application that is for businesses, and it reaches out to their customers on their behalf to bring them back into their store and get them to spend money. And again, this is a repetitive process, and this is also a manual process that is very hard to do with a human. But with AI, you can have personalized conversations at scale, all at once and all at the same time. So something that was not possible before AI. Number 3 is simply terrible existing software. Like I said, I built my wife an app to track her nutrition when she was pregnant, but specific for pregnancy. So it said what vitamins to get in for the baby, what foods to eat for the baby, at what stage of development. And there was nothing good for this. I tried to find solutions, and every other pregnant woman was using MyFitnessPal, which is focused on like weight loss and building muscle, and it wasn't specifically for pregnant women. So there was either terrible existing software or just simply no existing software to solve this niche problem. And then number 4 is compliance or revenue critical. So is this something that if there's human error, they can either get fined, get in trouble, or they lose out on money by filling in this form wrong or by performing a task wrong? Something like job costing for construction businesses and figuring out the estimate of a job cost. Again, my fire inspection application kind of hit all of these because if they fill out an inspection wrong, then they can get in trouble with the fire department. So this is the 4 criteria that I use to find problems worth solving that businesses will pay me a lot of money for. So now you know what to look for when it comes to solving the problem. How do you find the actual problems, and how do you find the actual clients? Well, pretty simple. So Reddit and Facebook are both amazing platforms, believe it or not, to find clients. And the reason being is because they have very specific communities and very specific groups. You can find Reddit and Facebook groups for just about anything: personal trainers, lawyers, real estate agents, whatever it is. And a lot of the time, people post in these groups to ask questions, to ask for recommendations, to ask for solutions. If I'm a chiropractor and I'm not happy with my existing software to run my practice, what am I going to do? I'm going to go into a Reddit group of chiropractors. I'm going to go into a Facebook group, and I'm going to ask for recommendations or other solutions. So Reddit and Facebook are literally a gold mine for this stuff. And I kid you not, I have made so much money off Facebook, and I've gotten so many clients from Facebook using this exact method. Now, something else you can also do is search for terms like struggling, issue, problem. You can search both in Reddit and Facebook for these specific terms, because it'll bring up posts where people say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Anybody have a solution? Or this is an issue that I'm facing, or I've been dealing with this problem. Do you have any recommendations? So this will literally spoon feed you specific problems that you can build solutions for, and then go and reach out to those people that posted it and commented on that post and get them to try out your solution and then pay you money for it. This is the exact same thing I did with the pregnancy app. I went into Reddit and I said, is there anything for this? And everybody was just using MyFitnessPal. So I knew that this was probably a good application to build. Now, honestly, this part gets me the most fired up, because anybody without technical experience, without any developer skill, can make money building apps, building software, building automations. And this is the opportunity that Claude Code has unlocked. And most people are honestly just kind of tinkering and building apps that they forget about and that nobody uses. But the real potential here and the real opportunity is building real solutions and knowing what problem to look for and how to build a good solution for it. Which leads me to the final point, the thinking. What is the best way to actually think to get the most out of these AI models? And this is the most important part of this entire course. I know earlier I said setup was the most important part, but this is the most important part. And if you take anything away, take this away, because anybody can do the setup. Anybody can go through and set up Claude Code and figure out how to write a good CLAUDE.md file. But the real separator is your ability to get what you want out of Claude Code. If Claude can build anything that you tell it to, that you can describe, well, then the bottleneck becomes you. If you're vague with what you want, if you're vague with what you're prompting, then you're not going to get a result that you like. But if you're clear on what you want and how to communicate it to Claude, if you're specific, if you can give context, if you can problem solve, well, then you're going to get amazing results, and honestly, the sky is the limit. Because the cool part is these AI agents want to please you. Claude wants to come up with a solution. So your results are dependent on how much you push them. And refuse to take no for an answer. Sometimes my Claude Code will just run into a wall and it will say, hey, there's no solution for this, and there's no way to actually build something for this. I will literally say, I don't accept that. I don't accept that response. Keep looking and don't come back to me until you have a good solution. To give you an example, I needed data from a certain app for an application I was building for a business. I needed to connect to a third-party app that they were already using. There was no API access. There was no way to get that data, and Claude would just tell me straight up, we can't do it. I said, I refuse to take that for an answer, continue to explore all options until we find a good solution. And instead, it built me a Chrome extension we can use instead to get all of that data rather than using an API. So start pushing Claude more, refuse to take no for an answer, have it come up with creative solutions. And the real skill to develop in this is not the coding, it's not the technicals, it's the problem solving. It's the ability to push Claude to find new solutions to get the result that you're looking for. So that's the full course. I hope you got value from me sharing everything that I've learned so far out of my 1,000+ hours in Claude Code. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing down below for more Claude Code, AI coding, OpenClaw content coming soon. Also, don't forget to get that full guide down in the description below as well. But thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.